What is good, YouTube? This is the FF Dynasty coming at you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe, like, and comment below with either love or if you're feeling like some hate, throw some shade down there. Either way, it all greatly helps us out so we can keep bringing you new content. So we talked in the open about, how you are very analytical in your approach to watching film. Why so much emphasis on the film? Why was that the thing that you really just locked in on, and that was where that's where you do your work?
Well, the quickest answer is the ball bounces funny, so therefore it's not predictable. It's not a round ball. So
thank you.
But
Thank you.
but the actual answer is this: is that analytics are there to help you understand what you see on the field. They're there to kind of validate what's already happening on the field. And if it isn't, to help you kind of investigate a little further what questions you're asking or what you're looking at. But they are not the answer. They're just a lead off point to asking more questions. And so, for me, when people, and what happens in our media industry with the analytics community is they lean too much on things like, let's do marketable answers that seem like cure-alls for the fantasy player or the football knowledge, which is the idea if you're if you're at least 6'2" and 212 pounds and you have a certain amount of speed, then that's the kind of wide receiver you need to pick. No other team should be picking anybody who's smaller. Forget about Tyreek Hill. Forget about Steve Smith. Forget about Brandon Cooks, forget about, Antonio Brown, anybody who was
those are all outliers. And
they're all outliers.
Just be some of the best players in the league.
Exactly. Because they got into this habit of they think they didn't realize that correlation doesn't equal causation. And so they get too much into reverse engineering a lot of these, a lot of these processes, and they wind up marketing this, and it makes it look kind of like this is the cure-all answer. And there's grains of truth with a lot of the things that they're looking at, but it gets to a point where they also know they need to have a little bit of that, that talk radio, political radio shtick going on to get an audience sucked in for it, and then also create some sort of argument or debate so that they can argue with people and get more attention through that argument. And they may even be better at arguing just in terms of the logic and the rhetoric than they are about their actual point that they've actually worked on. And there's some really great people who do analytics out there. I mean, there's some great work like Chase Stewart, who is with what is it called? Football Perception, Football Perspective, who's out there. He does some really fine work. Matt Harmon, some of the work he did with reception perception, really does some enlightening things. It's not, and he doesn't claim it's, the answer to figuring out who a good wide receiver is. But those are examples of using film and using tape, or using film to ask the right questions. So for me, when I look to me, the tape is about understanding how a player, you're trying to draw a portrait of a player. And part of that portrait is what he can do now, what he might be able to learn to do, where he fits. And none of that, weight's not going to tell me that. 40 times not going to tell me that. It's going to tell me, what those things are going to help me out in a sense where, I look at the combine, and if the numbers match what the player's doing, that's helpful.
Huge check mark.
It's a huge check mark, and it's a very important thing. If I can't tell you, I can't look at a running back and go, yeah, he runs a 4.46 40. I mean, nobody can do that. And if you do,
there's
go play the lottery.
On Twitter. There's some people on Twitter who might argue that they can, but
they've had a couple beers in them. They stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night.
Right.
So, we know about that. They were probably right next door to my dad, and they're probably both, they're probably both brigadier generals, gun instructors, and Wall Street experts. So, and infectious disease experts too.
And way better at diagnosing football than you.
Yeah, they definitely are. And, and they will always, and I will guarantee you this, there will always be somebody on Twitter who will have the better answer about a player than I will. It will happen every single year.
Of course. Of course. And there may be like, there could be somebody out there, but it's just like you said, everybody who watches football thinks they're the smartest guy available.
Yeah. So when it comes to looking at the analytics side, you're going to look at those numbers, and and that helps tell you how fast they are. Are they? And then you also kind of have to look at the numbers with the level of, you can't be too tight with them. One of the things that the NFL made mistakes with, that I've heard talking about with certain scouts and former scouts, is that sometimes they've gone to the degree where if they've invited analytics people into the community, where they start putting too many limiters into players and say, well, if the player doesn't run at least a 5.40, then we don't want them at all.
Right.
And suddenly you're eliminating the Arian Foster from the equation.
Mm-hmm.
You're eliminating, or a good player who may not be a great fantasy player, but a good football player like Peyton Barber, who can help out your team. You're eliminating him from the equation, or a Spencer Ware from the equation,
sure,
or LeGarrette Blount or Joique Bell, or any of these guys that have been like CJ Anderson, serviceable players who can come in and produce at a high level at a cheap salary, while somebody's hurt, and not deliver much and not have much drop off. And if you cut those guys out of your equation, then that means now you're getting, instead of picking good football players who just happen to be slower than what you'd like for a starter, now you're getting guys who have speed for a starter but can't play football. And and then you're stuck with kick returners who can't run between the tackles.
Sure.
Right.
And that's part of the problem with the analytics, is that you have to you have to understand how to apply it within the right amount of context. And football evaluation is more literature and poetry than it is hard science. You can incorporate the hard science into literature and poetry, and to help come to a conclusion, just like what you do. You're a renovator. There's, things don't always fit perfectly as measured. You get wavy walls, and you have to refine things so that the wall has to be flatter.
If everything was 90 degrees, my life would be super easy.
My wife's doing all, she's installing wainscoting in our house right now, and redoing stonework and all that stuff. And it's like, it's always that way. And it's like, there's a craft to it, and scouting is a craft, which means it's both art, and it also has some scientific principles involved when you have to combine both.
But it's your eyeballs, so it's all subjective, and they're hard analytics. There's no way that those things could ever be any bit of subjective, because there's no way they could have tailored their model to fit their narrative either. So I just find it funny in that regard. It will make you stronger. It will grow hair on your head. It will make you last longer. All those different types of things, and then when they collect the money, make sure that your daughter's still your daughter and your wife are still like in the house, and that when they've left town. That's all.
Say it a million times.
Yeah.